Hey there, this is Erica from Ever Educating, and welcome to the December live stream that had to be postponed due to me being sick when it was scheduled to occur. So if you can hear me, please let me know. I know I had some tech issues last time, so I want to make sure that I'm coming, to you clearly. So if you are there, I'm going to check on my own, phone too. Oh, perfect. I can hear myself clearly. All right. So welcome. Again, this is the last live stream of 2021 coming at you in the first week of 2022. And this is going to be a really fast one because it's one of those topics that, I have thoughts on, but I'm not the best at actually implementing. But I do want to share at least some strategies in case you're not really sure where to get started when it comes to organizing digital files. So I am going to start by talking about this blog post, and I'll show you it on the screen in a second here. This was created in like 2018. So this is like ideal Erica talking about how to curate a digital filing system. And I still stand behind the fact that it can work, but it's a lot of work to actually maintain. So I don't actually do it anymore. And there's some elements of it that I think should change. So I'm going to start going through this, and then I'll show you what I actually do when it comes to my files. So just kind of keeping that in mind there. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And here we are. So this is the blog post, right? So keep organized, creating your ideal digital filing system. Now, the first thing that I talk about is picking an iCloud storage service. And yes, I definitely stand behind this one still, all these years later. I started with Dropbox because it was free and it worked out well for me, but then I ran out of space. And so I started using Google all the time, Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Forms, and I was saving tons of stuff on Google as well, on Google Drive. And so I realized pricing wise, it's much cheaper to extend your Google Drive storage than it is to extend your Dropbox storage. I was using the extended Dropbox storage service, and then I realized it's so much cheaper, $199 I think a month, to do it with Google. So I use Google Drive as my cloud storage, and I do have an extended amount because it wasn't enough, the free version. But that's fine with me. I don't mind paying those $2 a month to have tons and tons of storage, which you'll see, in a bit here. So that's the first thing, right? What do you want to use for your storage? Now, second, write out lists of everything you need to keep organized. So this is if you're starting to create a system, right? You're going to start from scratch. You want to get a sense of, okay, well, what kind of documents, what kind of files do I have a lot of? Because I'm a teacher or because I'm a researcher or both, whatever the case may be. And so, for example, here, right, as an instructor 101, I work with a consultant. So we had to, share things, right? And so, all right, how I'm going to organize that? Let's use a Google Doc, a Google folder, and we'll share that. And anything we put in there, we can both see at the same time. But there's other things too. My dissertation had a lot of downloaded files. All right, where am I gonna, put that? I'm gonna have to give that some thought. So just get a sense of what's everything that you're gonna organize in your system. And then you start creating folders. So I do stand behind folders. I use folders all the time. That is something that I've kept. And I have a lot of hierarchies. So here's one folder, and inside there's subfolders, and inside those are subfolders, right? So start thinking about what do you want your umbrella folders to be? Is there going to be an umbrella folder of PhD and one of teaching and one of something else? Or is it an umbrella folder of a course, right? Or a semester, right? So give some thought, how would you want to title your folders? Then go ahead and create your folders in your app of choice, right? So here's an example here that I use at this time. I had just a semester as my umbrella one, and then the courses that I taught in that semester, and then the different resources that I taught in those courses, right? For dissertation, I had this as my big one, then a folder for each chapter, and then the files inside those folders. So give some thought. What do you want to call your folders? How do you want to organize that? Now, next is move old files to their proper places. So you have all these files on your computer, and now that you have your hierarchy set up, it's time to start moving them over, dragging them over to where they're meant to be. This could take a lot of time, obviously, depending on how many files you have, but it can help start getting that organization that you want, right, or need for whatever situation that you are in. Now, this last step is one that's changed for me. Because again, I do the cloud service still. I still do my folder hierarchies. I still organize them into their folders as soon as I can. But my file naming system isn't like this at the moment. Because here it's okay, having a file system where you have, okay, well, all of my docs that are for my dissertation are going to have D underscore chapter and the chapter number underscore and the date that I created it, right? Maybe that's the system that you want to use for naming dissertation files. That can be great because then when you're looking for your files, like, where is that chapter file that I need? Well, you can just search D underscore chapter 1 and all of the files under that name that start with that name will appear. So I do think there's something to this, but then I realized that, a lot of times I'll download a file and it has a name given by somebody else. And so later on, maybe 3 months later, I need the file again, and I can't remember that name. So I go and I download it again. Well, if I download it again, a lot of times the computer will say, oh, you already have that file name. Do you want to replace it? Do you want to add another one? Or just open the old file? I'm like, oh yeah, just open the old file. I'll see where it is. And now I can remember that, or I can move it where I want it to go. Whereas if I had downloaded that file and changed the name to follow my system, it would just download again because the name is no longer going to match. So if you're downloading a lot of files created by somebody else, changing their names can have some pros. It could be easier to search for if it's matching your system. But if you don't keep that system up, then you might find that you're going to be downloading the same document over and over again, depending on when you need it, right? So just something to keep in mind when it comes to this particular step. Going down here, right? Make a file system routine sheet, right? So have this element of, okay, what am I going to do when it comes to files that I download or that I curate? So every time I get a journal article PDF, I'm going to be doing this naming format, right? Book chapter, the same. When it comes to an outline, this is what it's going to look like. So you can create a system if you want this way, but again, it depends on how much you're going to be naming and how much you're not going to be naming. So maybe you have a naming system for things you create, documents you create, but not for what you download. And then what you download, you're going to rely on making sure you have your folders organized instead. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. And then keep consistent, right? Review it periodically, make changes as needed. I fell by the wayside of using the system, and I just relied more on folders than anything else, than the naming aspect. But maybe this really works for you, and you can keep it up and just tweak it in small ways, right? And then I do have templates for using that, creating that system, this thing, that you can find in my resource library in case you want access to it. It is possible if you are signed up already, or you can sign up if you want to down here. Okay, so this was, again, 2018 Erica talking about organizing your files. So let me see here if I have any comments. No? Okay. So what does 2022 Erica do, right? So moving on over here. And here is my Google Drive. As you can see, I have a lot of space left on here. I'm using 18 gigs. I have 100 gigs that I can use. So definitely recommend it. Again, $2, $1.99 a month in order to have this much space. And so one thing I want to focus on here is, as you can see, at least in the beginning here, the top part of my Google Drive are a lot of folders. So again, what do you want your umbrella folders to be? I have one that was job market materials. I have one that's picture books because I'm an aspiring writer. I have one that's the name of my college, so the courses that I taught. So what do you want this first level to be? And then let's say, for example, we have St. Thomas, right? So the courses, the university that I taught at last year. Well, if you go to inside of this folder, now you have 2 more folders. And so these are the 2 courses that I taught, 1101 and 1102. Okay, now we go in further into 1101. What do we have in here? So I have a folder of all my lecture materials are over here. All my major assignments are over here. The small activities are in here. But then I do have some that are outside that are just in the 1101 folder. And those are my syllabus for each section that I taught of this course, which it changes obviously because of the time and the day, etc. And then I also have my course schedule right here. And then I had a little welcome message I created. I leave that out here as well. And then I talked about this on my YouTube channel before, all unit examples in 1101. So this is a running Google Doc where all of my examples from my course appear here. So that's not a lecture material, that's not a major assignment, that's not a small activity, right? So all of these are outside of those folders. So if you go back to St. Thomas and you do 1102, very similar, right? Major assignments, lectures. I didn't even create one for small activities. I just put them all in major assignments. And again, the syllabus, the schedule, and the syllabus for the 2 sections that I taught. So that's one example of a folder. And then if we keep going, I also do this for my creative stuff, right? So I'm an aspiring picture book writer. So under picture books, if you go here, I have a folder for every single manuscript that I'm creating revisions for. So all of these are different stories that I've created. And then outside here, I have, this actually has to go into the nothing to fear here folder. I'll have to change that. But then I have the only thing that's supposed to be outside of these folders is this document. And what I do in this document is I go here and I always create my initial draft of a picture book in here. And then once I'm ready to start revising it, I copy that draft, I create a new folder in this folder, and then I create a document in that folder, right? So for example, if I click here and I start moving this up, right? Now, when you go to Nothing to Fear here, it's version 1, right? And so if we go to Pool Party Treasure, I'm up to version 15, right? So here is another example of using the folder hierarchy. So this is what I rely on. So I don't rely so much on naming systems, but I do rely on my folder hierarchy. Okay, so this is here on Google Drive. And like I said, a great amount of space to use. I recommend it, right? Because I'm using it all the time anyways, because I like being able to open documents, whatever device I'm using. Now, since I'm screen sharing only this tab rather than my whole desktop, I took a picture, right? And so this is my desktop downloads page, right, at the moment on my desktop, right, or on my laptop. And so as you can see, downloads is what I mainly use because I'm just downloading a lot of things that I curate on Google or the case may be. And so what I did is I didn't actually move these like I usually would. As you can see, all these were created yesterday, downloaded yesterday. And so what I have in my downloads folder are, again, folders, right? And so all of these are the raw videos I created for this month's videos. And so I would just highlight these 4 and drag them into Ever Educating. And then I have these 2 are headshots for my new job. So I would highlight those 2 and put those in important documents because they're related to my job. And then up here, I have the actual videos that I edited that are named because they're ready to go. I would put that in Ever Educating as well. And then here are images for the thumbnails for the videos, and as well as this blog post I created. So again, I would put them where they're meant to be, right? So in Ever Educating, this blog post is for my picture book website, so I put it under picture books. And so as I create and download documents that are not in these folders, they wouldn't match, I create a new folder. This is a pretty new computer, right? And so even in this element of my laptop, I create folders. It's not just Google Drive, it's not just Dropbox. In downloads, I also have a lot of folders that I use to keep things organized, okay? So those are my main strategies, using the folders, using subfolders to keep things as organized as possible. Now, of course, to some extent, let me go back, to me here. To some extent, you can just have like folders upon folders and then tons of subfolders and then subfolders. Like there's a time when it gets to be too much. So I think really it goes back to, all right, well, which materials do I need long-term and which ones do I not? So I do recommend decluttering your space at the end of each semester. And by space, I mean your digital space, and seeing, okay, well, I can delete these because these are things I downloaded from students that I don't need anymore because they're on Canvas. I can, move over these lecture materials into my next semester folders because I'll be using them again. And then, you might have, okay, well, maybe you make a folder that's called old courses, right? Or past semesters. And what you can do is, okay, well, the fall semester has ended. I'm going to go ahead and highlight those, 1101, 1102, and move them into my old courses folder, right? And so that way you can just kind of make sure that all you see is one semester at a time. But if you need to find older materials, it's very easy to go to that one folder and then go to the right subfolder. So, again, kind of really depends on what you prefer for your style of organization. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat, because this was a short one because I just wanted to get some ideas down. If you have any questions, let me know now. But something else to consider, like, I'm not a paper person, right? So I'm trying to be as eco-friendly as possible when I'm teaching. So all of my assignments are collected digitally. Very little is done on paper, especially nowadays. But if you're someone who does have a lot of paper files for some reason, then obviously you can do this folder system physically as well. So I do like having, when I did my internship and I did an IRB, I had a lot of physical papers that I collected. And so for that, I have like a hard shell accordion case that has, subfolders in it to organize my things that way, and just have that tucked in my closet, right? So you can also do the physical folders as well if you need to. But I recommend keeping it as digital as possible, so it's easy to search for it on your laptop. So yeah, again, that's it in a nutshell. I don't see any questions at the moment. So if any pop up, go ahead and let me know in the comments and I can answer it after this live stream. And so I officially have the 12 live streams done for 2021. I won't be doing it monthly in 2022, but I will be doing it occasionally, at least quarterly. So if you want to subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out, I usually post in the community asking what topics you want me to cover in my live streams. So you can be on the lookout for that, for the one that may be coming up in Q1. So thanks for watching. Click like, again, subscribe, and I will see you next time. This week's video is about an EdTech tool, but then the rest of this month will be about my job search. It came to an end. I was successful in getting a job. So we're talking about that process for the rest of January after this week. And then on February, we'll go back to the regular teaching tips, advice, EdTech tools, topics like usual. Okay, so I'm excited to share with you this journey of the job market. But again, I'll see you back in February with more teaching tips if that interests you more.